Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. And today I am really pleased to have with me on the line Nick Tsoukalis. Nick is a three-time Inc. 5000 winner and founder of Real Top Marketing, one of the fastest growing and highest ranking digital marketing agencies in North America. Nick is a firm believer in the power of Google and Facebook ads to grow businesses exponentially in a short matter of time. Realtop manages over $30 million for various companies. Nick is also a successful podcast host where he shares his tools, where he shares the tools his company uses to gain revenue for its customers. Join me today as we talk about the importance of a solid SEO and calculating your lifetime customer value and how to make your business go boom. Nick, thank you so much for joining me today and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Dude, I got to hear this backstory, right? Because starting out a digital marketing agency, for some people, it's a dime a dozen, right? It's not really that hard to start one, but to be successful at it and to really bring home the results that businesses need and what businesses pay you for is a true skill. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to be so amazing?
Yeah, well, thank you for the compliment. Number one, I have to say we're entrepreneurs first. We're salespeople first. We're marketers, maybe second or third. And what that means is I didn't set out to start a digital marketing agency. I had a business before this business that I wanted to grow. I wanted to create this successful company, and I needed digital marketing to do so. And essentially, what happened at that point was I was investing in, agency after agency after agency, and I never got the care that I felt that I wanted. I could never find an agency that could understand where I was coming from as an entrepreneur. Okay, they could never understand that I needed marketing investment to be investment, not expense. I needed it to move top line revenue. So I ended up taking over the marketing myself for my last company. We grew it, hit the Inc. 5000 multiple times. Um, we got to the point where we were acquiring more than 1,000 new customers every single month, and we did that consistently for probably 6 or 7 years straight. And I delegated out the majority of my work to these amazing people at the company, and then I got bored. I literally had nothing to do other than the marketing, so I started helping friend after friend after friend marketing their companies, and they wanted to pay me. Like, who would have thought? And I said, well, I guess I need a company to be able to charge you. And Realtop was born. We started the agency so I can help a bunch of my friends that owned anywhere between small businesses doing $500,000 a year up to a few of my friends were doing north of 10 million, and they needed someone to do their marketing, and we started the agency to serve them. And now, we've gone to the masses. We serve people in, let's see here, 2 continents right now. We're in North America and Europe. We have clients all over the place. We got a team in 5 continents, which is kind of fun. And we're growing pretty quickly. Our clients have blessed us with a lot of great referrals, and we're marketing ourselves as well. Here we are.
You know what's really interesting about this story is it sounds like you scratched your own itch, right? You're trying to find what's the best way to offload some of these tasks that you needed to do first of all for your own company, and then to be able to do it for others, right? And I think what a lot of people that try to get into this field, they think about like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do link building, or I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do on page SEO or off page SEO for you. But what happens is that they're just thinking about, well, I'm gonna build you 10 links a month. They're just thinking about the function of it. But you're right. What most people do not look for and do not take the time to get into the weeds is to figure out how is that tactic going to move your top line revenue, right? And that is so key, because if you get it, it's like I get people all the time that are calling me up asking me like, hey, can you do this, can you do that? And sometimes I even need to turn them away. Why do I turn them away? It's because I either don't care or don't want to buy into what it is that they're selling. Right. So I don't want to take the time to get into, okay, like, well, how do I sell semiconductors? Right. Or how do I sell, term life insurance? Those are things that are just like, okay, like, yes, that, there's a big market for them. I'm not great at it. So I would prefer to bow out. Right. And when you have when you have a mission and then you go in and you truly understand what it is that your client is trying to do, that makes the relationship so much more golden. Right.
Yeah, and it's an interesting point you make too, because people will ask you for something, and sometimes they're not aware that that thing they're asking you for maybe isn't good for their business. Like, we see this all the time. We'll have a company reach out to us that is mostly referral based, and they'll have, the CEO is the sales guy. He's the one signing all the deals, and he'll say, "Hey, make it rain with leads." And if we go to market, if we go to these digital marketing platforms and we start making it rain with leads, ultimately what happens is we could break the business. Like, we produce too many leads, the owner's not used to dealing with them, and he neglects his referral business to deal with the leads that he's getting from Facebook. So we have to, like, do a deep dive into how are we selling and acquiring clients at the business level, because if that's the case, maybe what we do is we say, "Hey, how can we augment your referral business with digital marketing? Maybe we focus on email, maybe we do more social, because ads for leads might break the business. We might make that a phase two or a phase three of a strategy, but you have to do a deep dive. If we just say, "Hey, sign up for Google Ads," well, great. What if we create too many ads, too many leads? It happens. It's a big problem, believe it or not.
What's interesting about what you're talking about is, if you had to zoom out a little bit, you're talking about process, right? Some businesses just aren't ready for the process of you sending them over, like, going from 10 leads a week to, 10 leads an hour. Right? What would happen to your business if you really did that? A lot of businesses, coincidentally, because of the pandemic, they got these PPE loans. They also got SBA loans. All of a sudden, they're flush with cash, right? And they're like, okay, let's really blow this out of the water. Guess what, buddy? If you're not set up to handle that extra flow that that real top can bring, you literally can, like you said, break the business. And I love how you brought that to the forefront. I'd like to talk to you a little bit before we move on about process, right? And like, how do you evaluate companies that come to you in order to see if they are a good fit, if they do have the process that they can handle the volume that you are about to bring them? How does that look in your world?
That's a great question. Well, businesses, if you've studied, I'm sure a lot of your listeners have studied, like, the E-Myth Revisited, right? So you have businesses that a lot of times they're at an infancy stage, okay, or they've made it to an adolescent stage, and sometimes they don't know they're there, okay. um, and they don't have an intentional plan for acquiring customers. They've just done a really good job. Business is going good, they're getting some referrals, and they have revenue, and now they want to reinvest. So a lot of times we'll just say, "All right, what are your metrics?" Okay. And the metrics are going to be real simple. What's your lifetime value? Oh, you don't know it. What's your cost to acquire a client? You don't know it. Well, before we jump into marketing, let's define this stuff. That's going to be a sign of maturity that you should start investing heavily into digital, in all marketing and customer acquisition. Like, have we taken that next step? Are that's one sign that I'm speaking to a mature CEO. The second thing is there a runway? We have some people that, prospective clients, that will call up and say, "Hey, can I try you guys out for a month?" Well, marketing, it takes time to dial in campaigns. Takes time. It could take weeks. It could take months to perfectly get it right. Do you have a financial runway to actually stick with it? Because if you don't, there's no point. You don't want to test the waters here. And although you can do some testing, you have to be able to stick it out to get to the point where the campaign's mature and they're making money for you.
You know what's really interesting about that? I get this a lot where, someone will call me up and will ask me, "What's the minimum amount I can spend on Facebook ads?" And 9 times out of 10, as soon as I hear that question, I know it's like, That's it. I'm sorry. I gotta go." Like, I just don't have
Yeah.
time for this. So, I mean, let's answer the question. Yes, you can spend $10 a day, times 30, $300 a day, right? But if your average cost per click is, let's just use round numbers, $1 a click, right? You're only getting 10 extra people in. Now, if you're only getting 10 extra people per day into your door, is your offer that good that you can convert a significant percentage of them? Most people will either lie and say yes or admit to themselves that they can't. So what happens is that yes, you can do this for like turn it on for a week and turn it off for a week, but you're not doing the Facebook or the Google algorithm any favors. You're not they're not giving your company a chance to really take flight, and they're really shooting themselves in the foot, because with a customer like that that's only looking at marketing as an expense, they're just never going to get off the ground. And it really becomes a painful relationship because 4 months later, like, you didn't do anything for me. Right.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's like, and then it's just a crappy relationship. You got to disengage, and, you put all this hard work in there and it just becomes, ah, like,
Yeah,
I don't
nobody
want
wants to be an expense. You know what I mean? I usually, if it wasn't for this podcast we're doing right now, I usually have a stack of bills right there. I hate those bills. You don't want to be that bill. You want to be an investment. You want to move top line revenue, but at the same time, you need to understand that when you're building up a brand, you're building up a company, it takes time. You need runway for lead generation. You need even bigger financial runway to build brand recognition. That's you're talking years down the line, of sometimes those metrics can't be measured perfectly. um, you can measure followers, you can measure online activity, but how strong your brand is it's not something you can perfectly clearly define and quantify early on in a campaign. You have to be patient.
Let's talk about how you can on some of the more mature metrics you would need to go through in order to really dial that in. So, that's part of your one big tip, is to really take a pause, right? And figure out what is your LTV and your CAC. Let's talk about those two. First of all, please define them for those that get confused with the acronyms.
Yeah.
And and also, how does knowing those numbers actually help you make better marketing decisions going forward?
Yeah, some of it's psychological, right? But let's define them. Okay, so first of all, if you're listening right now, you do not need more than a napkin's worth of paper to take notes about this. Okay, so your LTV is your lifetime value. Okay, give or take. This isn't always a perfect calculation. You want to try to figure out how much every customer that you're acquiring is worth, or is worth in terms of revenue over the lifetime of the relationship. Okay, so Burger King, they know when they get you in the door how much you're worth over the next 10 years, and in terms of burger buying and french fries buying from them, right? So you want to calculate that. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. You're selling coffee, you're selling construction, you're selling software as a service. It doesn't matter. Okay, define that. The next thing you want to define is your CAC, okay, which is your customer acquisition cost. Some people will call it CPA, or cost per acquisition, but CAC is pretty simple, okay? And CAC is, how much are you willing to invest in acquiring that that client. Okay, so if you have a client that's bringing in $1,000 worth of revenue over the course of the relationship, how much are you willing to pay in acquisition costs, which typically consist of your marketing, maybe your salespeople? How much are you willing to invest in getting that $1,000? Well, if I could have a magic box and I could put $200 into that box and it spits out 1,000, I'm going to want to do it all day. I'm going to intentionally want to invest, right? Um, when you do this, when you stop, pause, whatever you're doing, calculate your LTV, okay? Calculate your CAC, okay? Figure out what you're willing to pay to acquire those clients. You can more intentionally go out and hunt for business. In fact, you can start entertaining different types of marketing offers. Like we're all solicited all day long for different marketing offers. Okay, the TV company solicits you, the radio guys solicit you, the Google guys solicit you. Everyone's soliciting you and saying, "Hey, we can market your business." Well, when that happens, you can turn around and say, "Great, I make $1,000 per customer. I'm willing to pay $200 to get that customer. Can I acquire clients using your platform for $200? If I can, great. Let's go for it." You can also start going out into the marketplace intentionally and start thinking of ways to acquire the customers. Um, I'll sometimes get people that are running very relationship based referral businesses that say, "Nick, we don't have a CAC. We don't pay anything to acquire our customers." And then I quickly remind them, you do. You're taking these people to lunch, you're going to dinner, you're sending thank you cards, you're sending chocolates. Those are all marketing costs, okay? They're just not, the obvious, the Google ads or the SEO, but you should define that even if you're in a referral based business as well.
What's interesting about that is, even the office that you're in, right? Yeah. So if you have a big shiny office downtown Boston, right?
Yeah.
That's part of your that's part of your swagger, right? And that's part of the like okay, I want people to see me. When you pull up to a customer, in a Yugo versus a BMW 328, that's going to make a different impression, right? And it really comes down to which one of these expenses do I really want to show. It's like, okay, now we have a lot of people working from home, but what can I do within this home office to make it look like I invested in myself or I'm investing in my company, right? So like I'll pay for better software, to track you. I'll pay for better software to do this live in this podcast, right? So those are all for me investments, as well, to create a better impression for the people that I'm talking to and for the clients that I've been called to serve.
That's actually a great point. You mentioned the car thing, right? Um, here's another additional big tip, right? For a lot of the business owners I work with, and a lot of the business owners I know, they'll have that once a year meeting with their accountant, right? And they'll start reviewing expenses. Okay. And when you do that, spring is in the air. Let's do a little spring cleaning. And what happens? Okay. You start cutting expenses. Make sure that when you're dealing with that spring season and you think those things are expenses, okay, uh, make sure that they truly are. Okay, be careful cutting things that you think are expenses, okay, because your accountant told you they're expenses, and then actually adversely affecting your top line revenue. Okay, if you're putting $1 into the machine and it's spitting out $1.25, and you remove that dollar, or great, the margin maybe wasn't fantastic, but ultimately what happens is you're hurting your business and the longevity of your brand. So be careful. I had a client that was putting on this really elaborate party every single year, and he decided to do cost cutting and cut the party. Okay, it's a beautiful party. He was inviting clients and everything. He's like, "We don't need the party." Okay. Um, he looked at it as an expense, and it was very expensive, right? So he had the cash flow of this thing. But ultimately, what happened was he cut an expense, or he cut an investment versus an expense because it affected his top line revenue. Now he's all about, let's party and all this good stuff, because he knows it's going to move his business along.
That's a really good point. Like a lot of these things, like you can argue at the dinner table, with your spouse. Do I really need this? Do I not really need this? And I'm sure we can go all day, trying to comparing these little things versus these big things. One last thing I wanted to ask you though, when you do get a company that does successfully or can articulate successfully these two questions. What's your LTV and what's your CAC? What happens then? Where does your magic then start to light up so that you can deliver great results to your clients?
Well, I'll give you one example, and it's Google Ads. Okay, so especially if you're selling to the masses, there are billions and billions of Google searches probably every single hour or minute at this point. I don't know the exact number, but there are usually people that are online looking for exactly what you have to offer. Okay, so when I see a company has these calculations, what we'll do is we'll find out all the different things that company is selling. We'll go into Google forecasting tools. We'll put in all those keywords, and we might expand on those keywords as well. And we'll come up with a forecast that is, number one, how much it will cost to acquire the inquiry from the client, okay, whether that's a phone call, um, some sort of opt in. And then we'll work with the business owner to actually come up with an acquisition model. So we can forecast uh, pretty precisely from Google what it will cost to acquire a customer. Okay, and if we can make sense of that in a forecast, then we can, as long as the business can handle the volume, we can roll out a Google Ads. We can roll out a Google Ads campaign that can grow a business exponentially. There are companies we've worked with that have grown not just 2x, 4x, 5x, 10x because of Google Ads. So I would say that's the first thing. We get in front of high intent, highly motivated people that are looking for what the business has to offer, and we roll people out there. And we can scale a business very, very quickly as long as they know their metrics and they fit.
I love it. Thank you so much for that, Nick. I really appreciate it. Can you please tell everyone how they can learn more about your company and how they can reach out to you as well directly?
Absolutely. So you can reach out to me at Nik at realtop.com. You can check us out online, www.realtop.com. We've got some pretty cool data there, whether it's case studies and testimonials and all of our service offerings. You can even request a free consultation. There's no sales pitch or funny stuff. I spend, a good 15, 20 minutes with you finding out about your business, and we come up with a way to help you grow it using digital marketing as the catalyst for it.
I love it. Thank you for joining me today. This has been a lot of fun. I love nerding out on this stuff, and I really appreciate you bringing the goods and
Thanks,
talking
Jeff.
about all of this, these great things that we need to do. Thank you for
You're the
joining me
man.
today.
Thanks, Jeff. You're the man.